It's my pleasure to introduce our day chair, our very own president-elect, Sean Irwin, who has been a longtime City of Lakes Rotary member. He's a proud member of the Rooters, who they say haven't gotten tired of him yet. And he is extremely great for all the great service projects he's gotten to participate in and bring along his family. I know I've done the same thing. So please welcome Sean Irwin.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ross. Very much looking forward to hearing Ellen Walthour speak today. After 20 years of working in education and nonprofit sector, Ellen launched her consulting practice in 2021. The majority of professional life was spent growing the BrandLab from a startup to a multi-market organization, serving over 1,000 students annually. Starting in 2009, first program director, she spent the next 12 years growing the organization from designing holistic programs focused on impact to hiring the team, managing the board, and developing a social venture 100% focused on the mission. She wore just about every hat in a growing nonprofit. Prior to working for the BrandLab, Ellen worked in schools locally and internationally, where she held various leadership roles inside and outside the classroom. She holds a master's degree in education from London, an MA in teaching from National Louis University in Chicago, and a BA in English from Michigan State University. She gets the most energy from helping organizations deliver against their vision. Her passion lies in seeing people come together to move closer to the vision they imagined for the world. And we're going to present Ellen Walthour. Thank you for being here, Ellen.
Hi, good morning. It's lovely to be here. You all start early, but not really early. So I think your host, Ray, and I were chatting at 7, and he said, people roll in a little bit later. So I was like, okay, I'll be back. Thank you so much for having me. And a big shout out to Mary Pat, who I know through my years of working at the BrandLab and in schools. I have a little presentation for y'all that I'm going to share. Hopefully it will not be Can y'all see what I got in front of you?
Looks
Awesome.
good.
Okay, I can see many of your faces as well, which is really the goal, to have a conversation. And me just 1 second here. Say just, can you imagine being a teacher and having to do this in 2020 with 30 little kids looking at, I mean, come on, what have we done here? Okay, so a little bit about Cufflink. This is the name of my business, Cufflink. And even though it sounds like a we thing because it's a business, it's really just me. I'm a solo entrepreneur, and I am doing some really cool work that I'm excited to share with y'all. Let's take a look a little bit more about me. You can see that I am trying to live life to the fullest. So I have 2 dogs now, that little puppy down there, Wrigley, because I'm from Chicago originally. So we had to give a little nod to the Cubs. And there's me in the corner, with the microphone when I was working at the BrandLab and I was asked to speak many times in front of bigger audiences. But mostly what brings me joy is my family. I have 3 curly haired children, just like me, and my husband's bald. So, it's this like funny looking family walking down the street. And over the years, we've done a lot of travel. So I was telling your MC that I had a chance to live in Japan in my 20s. I've had a chance to live in London, and I've gotten this privileged experience of really traveling the globe. But what brings me the most joy is seeing people move towards a better version of the world. So yes, I'm a bleeding heart, and I will admit it with, a big cheer. You can see that down in the bottom with that group of students, that is really was the thrill of my career. So I think, I've been lucky to have a job when I worked at the BrandLab that just brought me such joy and so much pride in the work that I that I got to do. You can see my little kids down at the, St. Patty's Day parade. So that's when I started at the BrandLab. I was a young mom and juggling quite a bit of stuff. And so I'd leave these little peanuts and go and hit these big peanuts. And my life was really full of a lot of love. It's 12 years of that work. And then I left about 2 years ago. And it's hard to leave something that you've built so much into. But I've recovered and I am now doing my own thing. And my business today, oh, here's a little bit more about me. So that's kind of a snapshot of my resume. If I was applying for a job with y'all, I would send you, this hard copy. But I think what I love about this is, yes, I started in 1996 working as an assistant pre-K teacher. I did become a chief executive officer of an organization. But I think my most thrilling professional moment was this little part down here. It's fantastic to see the kids light up, especially when we bring them into the agency. I was quoted in the New York Times. So that is a proud moment for me. And then back to my business. So the name of the business is Cufflink. Why Cufflink? The goal of my work is to bring it all together, just like a cufflink does. But I was born into a men's clothing store. So my great grandfather came over from Poland in 1913. He started a business. And you can see him right there in front of his shop. And it's, coats, what does it say? $2.50. Our motto is honest merchandise and low prices. And then this grainy picture was some of my mom's cousins, and they were running the store. And that's where I spent a lot of my childhood, running around that store, picking up pins. My first job was a penny a pin. And there's a real legacy with a men's clothing store. Young boys would come and get their, first Levi's all the way up until their tuxedos when they got married. So there was quite a community aspect to the Fell Company. And this quote down here, I found like a site with all this information when the store did eventually close, with people's memories of the Fell Company. And I still meet people today that say, oh my God, you're a Fell. So I wanted to give an homage to those immigrant roots where I came from. And the other part of the story and why Cufflink is my mom ran the tuxedo department. So after school, I would go and, that's where I hung out. I would match the cufflinks and studs. And there's my mom wearing her tuxedo and my grandpa, who I'm going to read this because I'm so proud of him still. Over the years, Abe Fell served as a village trustee, Rotary Club president, and board member of the Winnetka Human Relations Commission, but his real love was sports. And this is my mom. Daddy carried a folding chair in the back of his car, and whenever he'd see a game, he'd pull over and take out the chair to watch. So he was a real community person. Today, there's still a scholarship in his name for an athlete from the high school that we all went to. Okay, enough about them. Back to me. Cufflink, my business. What is it? How is it different than other businesses? Well, I have created a business where I need to hustle twice. And the reason why is because I really believe in the work I'm doing. And I believe that there's lots of people out there that want to support the work I'm doing. So a little bit about how I operate. So my whole career was in education and building this nonprofit. I spent 12 years learning and growing the BrandLab, which was in one classroom when I began. It's a youth program, a workforce youth program, focused on marketing and advertising. And I learned everything on the job. I grew this thing there were lots of us, but I was the leader at the time. And we went from serving one classroom of students to 3 cities. So I got to be at all those pivotal points. I got to be in those boardrooms. I got to ask for millions of dollars, and I got to connect with students. So today, what I'm trying to do, what I'm doing, I have to start shifting that language. What I'm doing is that I'm finding mission-driven nonprofits that are 501c3s. I work with them to come up with, a challenge that they're facing. It could be anything from my board isn't really active and engaging. My program isn't really working. The data shows that kids aren't really learning what I think they're learning. So I can work with them on program design. I can work with them on roles and responsibilities. We know as organizations grow, there's challenges there, politically, professionally, personality wise. So I try to help people get clear with what is their lane and how they overlap with others. Okay, so that's the nonprofit side. What is this donor side? Once I have a proposal that's nice and tight and ready to go, and the nonprofit feels good about it, I shop it out to donors. So I connect donors to very, very cool, more grassroots organizations that they may not have heard of. So there's many people out there that want to make sure their dollars are going to the right things. And sometimes what I've heard from my donors is, they want to give to these littler nonprofits, but they don't know enough about what's happening there. So with me, I'm like this trusted entity that helps them know that their dollars are going to, finding a solution. And then my goal is in this Venn diagram is, you see Cufflink right in the middle, is that not only am I doing the work for the nonprofit, I'm sharing information about the progress we're making back with the donor. So you would get, let's say, Bill Klein, you're right below me on the screen. So I'm going to just tag you for this. Bill's my donor. And I say to Bill, okay, here's an impact report. He gets sort of an individualized impact report. And then he starts to feel closer to this mission. And then the hope is that when I leave, Bill is still giving to that organization. So it's a win-win. It's the perfect Cufflink. So let's talk about why someone would give. This is more of a message to you Rotarians about the power of belief. So this is John Watson. He is one of my donors, and he has given me permission to share this about himself, is that he supports these projects because he gets to, do work that he gets his dollars to go to an organizations that have been vetted and that he knows that I'm doing this work. He knows that the organization invests as well. So it's not a complete subsidized project. It's the organization puts in some of their gen ops as well. And then the nonprofit gets to do work that they couldn't necessarily afford. But the reason why I put him on this presentation is because he believed in me. And him and I were having lunch after I had left the BrandLab, and I was trying to figure out what was next. And he was asking me all these questions. And I was telling him about some jobs I had applied for. And then as we were walking to the car, the meeting after the meeting is always the best meeting, right? And I tell him this idea that's been percolating. I said, John, I think I want to do this work with smaller nonprofits, but I know they can't afford it, and I need to get paid. Remember those 3 curly-headed people that I have to put through college? So I pitched him the idea. I said, what do you think? I mean, is this a benefit? You're a donor. Would you want to do this? I did tease him. I said, you're a rich guy. Come on, what do you think? And later that day, he sent me an email and said, I love it. If you can find a project, count me in for $10,000. So he's my venture capitalist. He's my support. But really what he did is he believed in me. So as people are coming to you and offering ideas, give them that support. I needed that support to hang on my shingle. And now I have my own business, which is really cool. So I credit him. Okay, so it's one thing to have the belief of the donor, but what about my clients? And I just have to say, they really, really like me. And this is just obviously some humble brags, is I'm just wonderful. And here's the example that I wanted to share is All Square is a nonprofit in town, and they partnered with me to get clear about the team's roles. I inspired and empowered them to dream and decide and then go. That's my superpower. Lots of people have visions, lots of people have strategic plans, but what happens afterwards? Sometimes I laugh that my business should actually be called Nudge, because I feel like a lot of times I'm nudging people forward. And so that's me. That's all about me. It's short and sweet, and there's me looking all professional in front of a group of people. But now I'm mostly just walking my dogs and answering client calls and working from home, which is a whole nother topic. I appreciate the time, and I feel really, this is really a big deal for me, because knowing my grandpa was so committed to Rotary. So thank you. Was that enough, Ray? Or should I keep rambling?
Are you able to take
No,
some
no,
questions?
no.
I think we've got some.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Sean's got your
this
hand
is
raised.
Sean Irwin. This is Sean Irwin again, and I thank you very much, Ellen. I will start with a question. I'm I'm wondering, when you say these small nonprofits, put some parameters around that for us, because you're speaking a language that is unique to you and not necessarily across the spectrum of our guests. So
Sure. I think of a smaller nonprofit just more from the budget, the operational budget. Um, you know, I absolutely want to work with larger nonprofits, but usually then they have the budget to do this. So I might do a project with a larger nonprofit and not find a donor. The donor that comes into it is based on the need of the organization. So a 350, an operating budget of 350 or less. I mean, All Square was much bigger. So it's, yeah, I
suffice
think
it
the
to say,
number,
suffice it to say, typically a nonprofit with under $1 million in revenue.
yeah, under $1 million, I guess is the right way to say it. But bigger organizations have similar problems. So I'd love to, work with all sorts of folks doing good work.
Ellen, I work a lot with nonprofits. I facilitate a cohort of CEOs in about 14 nonprofits, so I'm very familiar with that community. But I'm a little unclear. I wonder, I know a little bit about All Square too.
Yeah.
So I'm really a little unclear exactly what you do. I'd like to have you use All Square as a case study. Tell us exactly the time, what you did, how you're doing it, how do you measure success? Because I still don't really understand it. That's what I'm saying.
Uh-oh.
It really puts a beat on the bones around
Sure.
even All Square.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, I think a good example that I could share is another client I had, Wildflower. Have you heard of Wildflower Coffee?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Wildflower Coffee, I met with their executive director, and she was talking, they had been maybe 3 years up and running, and they hadn't done a real deep look at their program. So as they're building out their program for their youth, they had a lot of success, with teaching them how to use. So for those of you that haven't heard of Wildflower Coffee, it's a coffee shop that employs homeless youth. And the woman who began the coffee shop was a social worker. And what she saw was that, they could triage crisis, but then the young people were not able to keep a job. If you're homeless, imagine the challenges of simply getting to work. And so she wanted to create wages for them where they were working in an environment where they could learn about how to work, sort of the soft, hard skills of work in a place that allowed for all the grace that is needed for a young person who's experiencing houselessness. So they had this program and they spent a lot of time doing how to do the barista and then helping them with getting housing. But there wasn't, what they found afterwards is that those kids, once they were done with the program, they were just kind of done, and it was a great experience, but they weren't moving forward and moving out of the poverty that they were living in. And so what I did with that group is I brought together key stakeholders, board members, program staff, young people. I did some qualitative interviews with the youth. Then I brought that information to the program staff. And then what we did is we did, exercises, facilitated groups on what the program was missing, kind of a keep the lights on, what do we need to grow activity. And then we revamped the program to add a whole nother component on sort of a U. So the youth were really exploring workforce ideas, what they wanted to do. And we even got some quicker measurement for that team. They had a lot of data collection, but it was like almost too much that they weren't using it right. So we simplified their survey and measurement. And now the program has these 3 components versus the 2. So I see that as a win, more holistic program. But my own data measurement, that's a good question. I need some advice there. How do I mean, that's the hard part about being a consultant versus being on a team. And that's the lonely part of this work. So I don't necessarily know in 2 years how it's going.
So let me ask this a little bit differently, because what I heard there might be this bridge to helping me understand it a little better. And I was with Jim just a little confused. So when you describe that, I would hear you describing, let's get a donor to almost have a grant request, connect a good donor with, in it. And I've worked as a board member of nonprofits for decades. But in that case, what I heard you describe is something that, let's match a donor that wants to get this nonprofit stepped up to at least 1 or 1.5 steps from where they are. And this way we'll have the investment to do that. And Cufflink will do the work to help them get there.
Yes.
Is that-
Sometimes people feel a little like it's such a mouthful to explain. That's why I tried with the Venn diagram. And some nonprofits don't get it. They think like, oh, I'm going to find them a donor. Yes, but I'm going to do the work. I don't want to just do fundraising for nonprofits. I want to get in, roll up my sleeves, get dirty, help them figure out their trouble spot. And I want to do that and make sure that those nonprofits have financial support. So if you, Sean, decided to give to one of my projects, you would cut a check to the nonprofit. You have that tax donation and it would be earmarked for Cufflink.
Got it. That's what I was wondering about on how do you, so, and really rather than trouble spot, just from a marketing perspective, because I love marketing, you might call it a growth opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but trouble spot works for some people because they like to give to solve problems. Other people like to give for growth opportunities. But yeah, okay. I get it better now.
Any other questions from the team for Ellen?
Can we contact you, Ellen?
Yeah, of course. Let's be
Just
Rotarian
explore,
friends.
just to explore the possibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ray has my information, but I can just put it in the chat as well.
Perfect. And we can connect with the programs team. Okay. Yeah, Ross.
Yeah, I was just curious, Ellen, thank you for your presentation. Are there resources as to, I think as our club and other Rotary clubs, we always at least are trying to support other nonprofits and people that are doing good in the local community. Black Men Teach was one that
Oh, I love those guys. Yeah.
a couple of years ago we supported. They've obviously grown and become more successful, and but we're always looking for a great service organization that's trying to help. And so if do you have a resource of kind of these, call them startup or at least smaller nonprofits that you can share? Maybe that's what John was asking, is how can Rotary help you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, I mean, I love your, I got the speaker's notes, don't ask for money. So, I'm not asking for money, but I love that question. And I just put on the chat an organization that I'm working with right now that is blowing me away, and they need support. They're called Heritage Youth Sports Foundation. And it's kind of like the Tony Senna. People have heard of the Senna Foundation in St. Paul. It's a little bit like that. It's a man from the community who played basketball at North. He's an incredible human. And he has been creating sports programs for kids for years with so little infrastructure. And he runs basketball programs. I'm starting to meet the parents. They love him. They love, it's not just sports. It's like strengthening communities through sports. And his board they're all Black men from the North Side. They are giving back to their community over and over and over and over again. And nobody takes a salary. I'm trying to get them to the next stage, and it's a slow process. And my proposal was for like this much work, but I find myself like, I'll be with you forever now, Mike. So check them out. And they do have a fun event coming up. There's a new golf place called Par 365 in Roseville. It's an indoor golf organization. And so we're going to be putting together an event to try to bring folks together to have fun and support the youth that they support. But yes,
Well, that's
I
fantastic.
will send a list of all these cool little orgs that are just so grassroots. They're people from the community who saw a problem and they're going to fix it on their own. It's awesome.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Ellen. We really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate your work and lifting up nonprofits. At the City of Lakes Rotary, we make a donation of a book to Way to Grow, which is for grade school kids getting their first book. And we have our speaker sign it. Mary Pat will track you down so you can sign it, so they can have a community leader sign the book. And we can't thank you enough for coming to speak with us and share some time. And thank you for your work.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to lift up my history and my family. It was special to look at some photos to prepare for this. So thanks.
In person, we'd be clapping for you. So it's a little
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye. And Mary Pat, I want to see you soon.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Sean. I'll wrap us up here. I just also want to thank our volunteer duties from today. Ed Codette for the reflection. Our Happy Bucks led by Bill Klein. Thanks, Bill. Our day chair Sean. Our speaker Ellen, Zoom Master Brock. And then next week, just like this week, we will be on Zoom. It'll be the last one in February. We also have 2 other Zoom meetings in March, and that'll be it for the year. But next week, as I think Jim shared, Kim Lorenz, the author of Tireless, will be here in online to speak with us. So it should be an exciting topic and speaker. And then on the 21st, we will be back in person for the City of Lakes Rotary Exchange students. Carol Brito and Sophia Dart will be presenting to us at the Women's Club. So make sure you show up on the 21st in person, but next week is on Zoom. So with that, go out and have a wonderful Rotary week. Thanks, everyone.